Hi, my name is David Ditchfield, and I'm an author, composer, and musician. And I'm really happy to be here to talk to you today on the Us People's podcast with Savia Rocks, and looking forward to it.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Yes People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I'm humbled to have David here with me, who is an author, composer, and artist. David, thank you so much for coming on the Yes People podcast. How are you?
Hi, Savia. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me along. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm good,
good.
thank
As
you.
I'm actually really humbled to have you here. I know that you've been through so much, especially with your book Shine On as well. But my first question for you before we get to your book is, could you tell us, just so we know more about you as a person, as an individual, about your upbringing, how you were brought up and how that influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Sure. Well, I grew up. I was born in Blackpool, which is up in the north of the UK. But I didn't stay there long, see. But I was brought up in Worcestershire, and very lovely place. And I went to school, and I didn't realise it, but I'm dyslexic, so I pretty much failed all my. You are as well.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
All the best people. I keep meeting
Yeah.
so many people who are dyslexic, doing these interviews. It's great. But yeah, so you know what it's like that when you're at school. Well, it certainly was for me because I wasn't diagnosed. I think the teachers just thought I was trouble. I was like lazy and didn't want to do the work, which I did. I wanted to succeed. So it when you've got that name tag around your neck, you kind of feel like you are part of that group of like, okay, I am a troublemaker, but anyhow, I left school and I decided to move down to London. I moved to London because I, I just figured that, I'd probably find a better, I wasn't fitting in where I was. And I thought, London's going to be great. And it was. I really like London because London's just such a sort of, all of a sudden I was in this kind of multiculture where people, just about everybody there that I've met, had come from different parts of the world,
Yeah.
and hardly anybody. The only real Londoners that I met most of the time were cab drivers or what have you, people working on the underground, and which is it's odd, but I don't know how you find that because you're London based, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm in Notting
Yeah,
Hill Gate. Yeah.
yeah. So, but are you born in London?
I
Are
was born
you?
in London as well. Yeah, literally. Yeah.
But yeah, but it's great. It's great energy, London. I love it. But in saying that, it was I started picking up work, basically doing mainly manual labouring work.
Okay.
Is what I was doing, and uh, but it wasn't easy for me because I wasn't that good at doing that kind of work. I was just like looking around at these other guys and thinking, wow, you really know what you're doing. There's a real craft and there's an art form to so much of this this style of work that we don't give enough credit for.
Yeah.
These guys are amazing, and I was saying, how do you plaster that wall like that? And they're going, it's easy, mate. You just grab this trowel or whatever, and off you go. And it's like I just made a complete mess of it. And but for me, it was just a struggle trying to think, how am I going to make my way? Where do I fit in? Where do I really fit in?
Yeah.
So yeah, so.
No, I like that, definitely. I think we all have a different path of how we do things. And clearly, when we get to the book, we're going to understand a little bit more about you and that and your life. I do
Yeah.
believe. I was listening to your diaries, your personal video diaries, and one of them that resonated with me, which I feel a lot of people are not necessarily scared of, but a lot of people think about is about silence. And my question is, what does silence do to you as a person, David, emotionally? Because when I was listening to your video, your audio diaries, and you had the TV on in the background, which was just basically kind of keeping you company, how does silence emotionally connect with you or make you feel? because before and after your accident that you actually had?
Yeah. Well, in very different ways, I guess. Silence for me now is a moment of peace. It's when I'm not working, when I'm not creating, when I just want to stop and say, "Whoa, it's time to recharge the batteries." So it's a meditative state, basically. Yeah. So it's really really beautiful. Um, I go to spiritual healing. Well, I haven't been for a while now because since the pandemic, we haven't been able to meet up. But in saying that, I've been doing online, meeting up with people who do online sort of distant healing, and that's great. So obviously that means going into the silence. And it's really quite an intense thing. When I do go to my spiritual groups, we start the evening off by sending out prayers to all four corners of the world, the animal kingdom, all the people who need healing in war-torn countries or whatever at that particular point. And once we've said those prayers and sent them out, we then go into what's called the silence there, and I love that part because the energy in that room is just so powerful as we just go into that silence, and it just goes on. There's no set limit. There's no sort of like this will last for 2 minutes or 10. I don't even know how long it lasts, and the energy that I feel that I'm sending out to people in that pure essence of that moment is fantastic, and people feel it because I've got friends, they'll say, "Oh, I'm going through a tough time at the moment," or "My mum's ill," or what have you. I said, "Don't worry, I'll send out some healing from the church tonight." And they say, "Oh, I felt it. And my mum felt it. I told my mum, and she was really pleased." So
Oh,
it really helps, to send that healing from. So that comes from that moment of silence. So that's a real pure essence of it.
what made you decide to actually start doing your video diaries? Because they're very personal.
Um, Basically, I mean, the way I'm gone about the whole thing right from the off, because as I started talking about myself, I come from a very sort of a background which is just kind of all about truth and honesty, and I guess, and it's like I wanted to continue that through in the theme of my story, if you like. The way I thought when I had my accident and my near death experience afterwards, I just thought I don't want to flower this up. Basically, I want it to be me and telling the story as it is, and it's something I continue to do. And when I started putting my website together, it's just an idea. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to put out some diaries and just talk, straight, almost like I just, put the kettle on and sat down and say, right, this is where I'm at today, and this is how I create music now. This is how I paint now. This is how I feel about. I did a video diary about my mother's passing. My mum, we lost my mum last summer, and I did it not too long after she'd actually passed, and it was something that I felt I wanted to do because I wanted to try and get across to the people what I was going through spiritually, as much as I'd lost my mum and I was grieving for her physically and emotionally. That I wanted to also get across that look, it's death is not the end, and I felt that. But I was tested, if you like. I was put to the test once my mum had gone. I still felt no. I know where she's gone. I know that she's in a beautiful place now. So I wanted to just record that and put it over as it is.
I like that. It's nice to be able to share those emotions with people because it does take a lot of energy from you to even do that, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be able to talk to me about survival mode, because I believe that you are, David, definitely one person who understands that word survival.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about survival mode with everything that you've been through. Talk to me about your experience of what survival mode meant to you at that particular time when everything was happening.
Um, well, when I actually had my accidents, I didn't. It's interesting because it's unlike most accidents. I had time to see that it was about to happen, although it was very quick. Like for example, if you have an accident that's in, let's say, a car crash, it happens instantly, doesn't it? You know, the oncoming car will go straight into you, and that's it. It happens. There's the impact. Whereas with me, I knew that, I heard the engines of the train revving. My coat was trapped in the doors, and I just thought I got time to think it through, but not very much time at all. And I've I didn't think about it, but I obviously it was the fight or flight moment for me, and I decided to go, or something, or somebody, or something told me, no, you're going into fight mode, and which is exactly what I did. And it's taught me an awful lot. It's taught me to return to that moment and make sure that I still use it in my life now, because there's obviously, there's many times since, nothing quite so severe as that incidents have happened where I think, no, don't fear this, just remember how you managed to fight that. Um, but it's interesting because another thing is that I've since learned. I saw a documentary last year with an American guy called David Eagleman, sorry, and he does studies into the brain, and he was talking in this one episode about when some people are facing severe, like rock climbers or something like that, and they see that they're just about to fall off the edge of a cliff, or their ropes just slipped and broken. That time stretches, and that's what happened for me, because I thought that the whole accident itself and the whole moment of it all taking place and took minutes. But the rail police, the National Rail Police, they stripped the carriage down, took it down to Finsbury Park, and they just and they turned around afterwards after all the inquiries, and they said, David, we've done all our figures, and we can't believe you're alive. You shouldn't have survived that. You should be dead. And I said, I know. And I said, how long did it take, by the way? And from the moment of it happening, and he said 13 and a half seconds. I was
Yeah, I
going,
read
no.
that. Yeah, I read
I
that.
thought it was, yeah, and it felt more like, minutes. So there you go. So that survival thing helped my brain and my mind to go into this three-dimensional camera. I was sensing everything all around me that was going on. It's just like, it's almost like I went into almost like a James Bond mode, if you like. I kind
Yeah,
of thought, right, if 007 were in this situation now,
yeah, I
what would
read
he
that.
do? If Daniel Craig was attached to this train, what would he do? And that is the proof. I really didn't. That helped me as well. That helped me through it.
Oh dear, because I was reading. Okay, let's get into the book because we've covered some parts of it already, but there. So your book is called Shine On, and it's about your near death experience, which I believe everyone should read your book and just go through it to understand the depth of what you actually went through. But that's not all you went through, because you've also been through a lot of things in your life. There were funny parts in it. There were parts that I know people can relate to, like you were getting letters about being evicted. And
Yeah.
you go, I know. Oh, believe me, I know. And
You've been there more than once.
oh, I think I know a lot of people who have. I've been
Yes, indeed.
fortunate, but I know a lot of people who've been in those positions and barely having enough money in your bank account, living in your overdraft. But you still manage to have good people around you. And for me, regardless of how bad things are in your life or in anybody's life, I think the blessing is being able to have, even if it's one person in your life who has that love and care for you,
Mm,
and I believe you do have people who do love and care for you
yeah.
regardless of so much that you've been through. But one question I would love to ask you, David, is could you talk to me about the day before everything happened to the point of when everything happened, and how did you feel spiritually before and after?
Well, I didn't really feel anything spiritual throughout my life before the actual accident. It didn't really occur to me. I guess I was the way I was living my life was that I was just kind of like, uh, I was living I call it like a linear sort of way of living life. I wasn't stopping to address all the problems that were facing me. I just wanted to get over them and just say, in fact, what I was doing, I was going to the local bar to the local pub and just saying, I'm going to have a pint, I'm going to have a drink, that'll sort it. And so that was my way of dealing with things. And so I didn't really, until one point just before, when I had got to that point, as you said, when I got the eviction letter and that arrived, and I remember I was just down to the bottom, rock bottom. I thought I can't go any lower than this, and I felt so low. And um, and I remember just praying. It was a friend of mine had bought me this. I got this beautiful kind of like Madonna that lit up in the dark, and which everybody thought was really funny, and they loved it, because it was always a bit of a novelty. But suddenly, at this point, this this glowing Madonna became a little central point for me to pray to, and I decided to pray, and I prayed so hard, just for help. But in all fairness, I didn't really know who I was praying to or what I was praying to. It was a point of desperation, and it was just, please help me. Um, but then, what happened was that on the actual day of the accident itself, this is winding forward, I was staying with my sister, because she could see that I was in a really bad way. She said, "Why don't you come and stay with me and my family?" They lived in the country in Cambridge. I said, "Yeah." So I did do. I was there for a few weeks, and I'd met somebody down in London who I'd really connected with, and we just kept in touch by phone. And she wanted to come and hang out with me so for a few days, so she did, and we got on great. We had this lovely connection. And on the day when she had to get back to London. She got an appointment, so she was. I remember that day when she was packing, ready to leave. I felt something that day. I felt an energy shift. I felt, and if it had been me now, I'd have been a lot more kind of go, wow, what's this? Something, the vibration has just shifted here. I'd be aware of it. But at that point, it was all new to me. But something very, very strange was happening, even at the point of her packing her case or a bag ready to go to the station. In fact, I remember one of my sister's cats came in the room, called Mushu, and he just jumped on top of this really high cabinet, a wardrobe or whatever, and he was wedged between there and the ceiling. How he got up there, I don't know. And he just kept staring at me, and I remember his paw just dangling over the edge. I was going, "What? What are you looking at?" And I said, is he trying to tell me something? And it's all that he was trying to warn me that everything was, that it was all shifting. And I just remember my friend Anna was taking time to pack. It's almost like she was like resisting leaving, not
Yeah.
because she really wanted to be with me. Don't get me wrong, she wanted to get back for this appointment, but it was really odd how I thought, we better go. She's going, oh yeah, and yeah. So I felt that there was that an energy was already starting to build, for what was about to happen, um, as we were about to leave that day.
That's amazing. But then what happened as you were on your way to the station? Then when you got to the station, how was it for you from that, especially that 13 seconds part? Because they said when they were on the CCTV and they were looking, it was only 13 seconds long. And I love the way you detailed the time of everything.
Yes,
Even
yes.
while everything was happening, you put the time. How was that for you from the point of when you let Anne, I do believe, on the train to when the train started moving and you realized, oh my God, my coat is trapped, and then everything started to happen?
Well, basically, I'd helped her onto the train with her bags, and I gave her a hug and a kiss, and then we heard the buzzers going for the doors to close. And as I stepped back, the bottom part of my coat got trapped as the automatic doors closed. And living in London, you know yourself that the London Underground doors, they open really easy. I've seen people running on there, just whacking their suitcases in to make sure they get on, and then they open. And I thought, why aren't they opening? And they weren't. And so I looked round for a guard, and there wasn't a guard. So I just yelled at the top of my voice for help, and nobody turned up. And there were two open and closing buttons on the side. I was whacking those, but nothing happened. So I think the moment of real sort of like um, fear, I guess, was when I looked. I could see Anna was the other side of me, looking through the window of the train carriage, and the fear in her eyes was just like,
Yeah.
oh wow, And I thought to myself, this is it, I'm going to die. I'm not going to pull free from this. So the train started edging at the station, and I remember that the engine's revving up, and it pulled out, and like I talked about earlier, it felt like it took forever. In the book, that's why I
Yeah.
wanted to do the countdown, because it felt like it was going on and on, like this clock that was slowly ticking. But in all fairness, it wasn't. And anyhow, I'm just being pulled along, and it's the trains when they pull out of the stations, you don't know it. When you're inside, when a train pulls out, you just sit down and get your phone out, don't you? And you're not thinking
Yeah.
about it. But the reality of it is, if you're on the outside of it and you're attached to it, they really pull out really fast. I remember all the gears changing, and I felt them shift, and I kept running along with it. Then hoping that it would come free my coat, and then I lost my footing. Then I was dragged, and I was dragged along the platform at great speed, and I still thought it's gonna come free now, surely, and I'll just roll away, but it didn't. I got pulled between the space of the platform edge and the speeding train itself, and then I just remember then again going back to this thing about having this kind of like big sort of super panoramic viewing camera that was fitted to my brain. All of a sudden, I remember when I dropped down through that gap, it was like slow motion, and it's like this carriage doors seemed to appear, they sort of disappear into the sky because it was a huge drop. And then I heard this tremendous rip, and then I just remember just being pulled into this dark, violent machine, and I was just tossed around relentlessly like a rag doll. And I remember just feeling it was interesting because I got this sense of fight going on, and I suddenly felt like it was me, flesh and bones, fighting with this huge metallic beast. It was like this, it became a monster, that I was determined not to let it take me. And it was making it hard for me because it was just throwing at me around. It was like being thrown into a washing machine at full spin, and then suddenly I was thrown down to the ground as the train continued onwards still, and I was laid in between the tracks, and I suddenly thought some of the undercarriage could just whack me over the back of the head, and it's not over yet. So I remember my nose being in this really oily sort of diesel sort of track or whatever smell, it was really, and again, I thought of 007. I thought of Indiana Jones. What would they do now? Yes, they'd lie out flat, keep their arms out, stay down. So that's what I did. And the train eventually kind of disappeared. It went on forever. It was a very long train, actually, as I know now. And it just continued off down the track and just kept going. And there I was, laid, thinking, wow, I'm
Yeah,
alive.
yeah, I am. I'm thinking, I'm thinking, wow, you're alive.
Yeah.
So what about the I don't know, the guy, the lady, or the man who was driving the train at that time? Because when I read further on in the book, and they said the guy should have seen you.
Yeah.
He should
That's
have
right.
seen you, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen him,
No,
or
I've
had a?
never seen him, no. Um, Basically, afterwards obviously there was a legal case,
Of course.
had to happen, and it's interesting because the the British Rail Police who do all the big sort of things at the King's Cross fires and all the big rail accidents have done, they dealt with it, and so I was being dealt with by the head of the Rail Police, and he was a lovely guy actually, and I remember I used to have to meet him, for coffees. He would come around and stuff and interview me, and one of the first meetings I had, I turned around and said, uh, "How's the driver doing?" And he said, "Oh, he's really, he feels awful, he feels terrible." Which of course he would, and I think he was about to retire, but um, and I was going to turn around and say, "Look, tell him it's not his fault. Tell him I don't blame him." But I didn't do. And my lawyers turned around and said, "Oh, what were you saying? You can't even go there. You can't even go into that territory." Of which I went on to see that how the whole legal system works. That you've got to be so careful about what you're saying. So thankfully, I didn't say anything. But you know what? At that point, I guess I didn't feel any. I still don't feel any anger or malice at him. I mean, he made a lot of errors that day. But not just him. There was just a lot of things just went wrong. That just so many things that just didn't fall into place. that meant that I was going to go under that train. So I look back on it now and I realise that it was, it was all pre-planned. It was meant to happen, and
Yeah.
it was out of everybody else's control. So
Yeah.
so yeah. So I don't know. I've had no contact with him, of course, since.
Oh, but tell me a little bit about when you went into hospital. How severe were your injuries when you went into hospital? Just for the listeners to understand and know a little bit more about the book itself and
Yeah,
how you were feeling and your injuries, because I read that when you were in the hospital there was a lot of blood and so
that's
on
right.
and so
Yeah,
forth.
yeah.
So please let the listeners know a little bit more about your story. Go into detail or depth about what happened when you were actually in the hospital.
Yeah, sure. Well, basically, I when I went into hospital, my left arm had been severed from it had been cut from the elbow down. It was just kind of just about hanging on. So there was a lot of blood loss from that, um, and there was internal injuries as well, which have still come back to haunt me. Only a couple of years I had to go back into hospital, and they had to operate on me because I got some internal bleeding. But all in all, I came out really, really well, considering I'd gone onto that train. But yeah, the main thing that I suffered was that left arm, and it was incredibly painful, obviously, and
Yeah.
very traumatic, and took an awful lot of recovery. But when I went into the A&E department in the emergency place, I remember the consultant. He just started working there, and he was a lovely guy. And he turned around to me and said, "Look, we're going to do our best, and you're going to go into theatre shortly." And I said, "No." I said, "Look, will you save my arm?" And I said, "I play guitar because I used to play sort of like very badly, but I could thrash out 3 chords and stuff, and it was just and I wanted to be able to. I don't know what it is. I just thought at that point, yeah, I want to keep my arm." And he said, I'm gonna do my best," and I knew he
Yeah.
meant it. He said, "I'm gonna try and save it." So he did. I mean, it took 3 major 8-hour operations to save it, but
Wow.
I mean, it's still here, But it's like it's not in full, full mode, But crikey, it's incredible what they've done. It's amazing.
See,
Yeah,
it's
it's great.
incredible what people can do, especially within their professions,
Oh
to
yeah,
especially to save somebody's life.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
Well, they
that
saved my
means
life, They just
yeah,
did. I mean, I knew that they were scared. I could hear it because I thought, wow, this doesn't sound so good. I was lay there and I could hear all these frantic voices going, all these scientific calculations going, "Give me an E45. I want an E45 net quick," or whatever, all these different things. It's like, well, what's an E45? What does that mean and stuff? And so it all sounded pretty high tension. So they really were fighting to save me, but they did an amazing job. I was just, I'm so thankful and grateful for all the work they did. It's just like they were very committed. It was like a team of people who worked with me. I also had an occupational therapist who worked with me, and she was great, called Sarah. And I talk about her in the book because we're still friends now. We formed a friendship afterwards, and because we formed such a great bond because I had to work with her. She had to, even though they managed to sew my arm back on and they'd done loads of incredible work with the bones. I mean, the bones were just completely shattered. I just got like this steel plate going down my arm. When I saw the X-ray, it just looked like pebbles that had
yeah,
been screwed in. And so I had to do an awful lot of work to get everything moving. Like, on my hand was like gripped like a claw, like a fist, I should say. And she had to work for weeks just to one by one slowly exercise my thumbs and my fingers to get them all moving again. And she was amazing. So we got to know each other really well because, we just chat and talk. And then I told her about my, what had happened to me and spiritually, and she listened. And so yeah, so they're all amazing. Yeah.
see, no,
Yeah.
definitely. Talk to me about your spiritual side now, because the paintings, the composing. Now, let's go deeper into who David is and has become. So, could you
Sure.
tell me a bit more about the spiritual realm and what happened in your spiritual? Or I know that everybody else who's listening, obviously, they can't see the video. David has paintings behind him, which are beautiful. and which share a lot of who he is as a person and what he's been through. But could you share with us, the listeners, a bit more about how it all happened to you spiritually? And you haven't been classically trained, have you?
No, not at all.
And
And I wasn't trained to paint either. So basically, what happened with the paintings, what happened there was when I came around from the first operation, I was lying in hospital, and I just remember waking up. I was in this room on my own. I just got this little machine bleeping next to me, like an R2D2 from Star Wars, and I remember just thinking. Part of me was like thinking, "Wow, I've just been under a train," I was dealing with that. But more than that, I was just thinking, I've just had this incredible experience, and which was called a near-death experience, and I'd never heard of near-death experiences before, but I'd had one. Would you like me to talk about that at all?
go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, basically, what happened was it was while I was in the emergency departments and losing all that blood that I went from all that franticness that was going on in the hospital to I suddenly left my body and I went into a beautiful, peaceful place, like another realm, and I felt like I was in a darkened room, but not a foreboding darkened space. It was very comforting, and I just felt all the pain had gone and all the anxiety had gone, and suddenly I was thinking, this is amazing, And I looked around, and the first thing I saw were these beautiful orbs of light that were like slowly pulsating around me. They're just pulsating colours of oranges and yellows and greens and reds. So I felt comforted by seeing those because it was just like wow. And I immediately figured to myself that I hadn't survived. I thought I've died. I didn't survive it, and here I am. I didn't resist it. I know, I've heard since that some people do resist it because they've got so much to live for. They want to go back. They've
Yeah.
got families and kids or whatever. And I don't want to go yet. Don't take me, kind of thing. It's not like I wanted to die, but I was. The contrast of where I'd just been to where I was now was just so beautiful that I was just happy just to go with it, which I did. So I laid back my head on I was no longer on a hospital trolley. I was now on a big slate rock. It was like a big medieval rock, and like like an altar. And I thought, what is this? This is amazing, And I just thought, this is really comfortable. And I didn't care. And I just laid back on it. And it felt so comfortable. And then I looked up, and as I was looking up, there were like these three symmetrical grids of white light that were slowly closing in on me. And I looked up into that light as I lay there, and I couldn't take my gaze away because felt like a really pure sort of healing energy that was coming from this light. And it was very intense. I mean, there was a kind of brightness that electric light or even sunlight would be too much to hold your gaze. But in this case, I couldn't stop looking. And then I suddenly felt, as I lay there, bathed in all this beautiful light, the presence of somebody. I knew that there was somebody had suddenly arrived at the scene, as it were. So I lifted my head and looked, and just at the edge of my feet, there was a person stood there, neither male nor female, just wearing this very simple contemporary black t-shirt, nothing too ethereal, just this very simple shirt, with this beautiful white blonde hair, but this skin that was just glowing from within. It was like this light that was coming from the skin. And I looked at this, I was going, who are you? I know you, don't I? I just knew that person's face, although I couldn't figure it out. And he or she just kept smiling at me, but very reassuringly. And there was a lot of telepathy that was coming through that was just saying, "You're okay, you're safe," and I'm your keeper, basically. So I felt very comforted by that knowledge and of this person being there. So I decided to lay back again and just allow this process of love that was happening just to go right through me. And then I felt that there was two other people probably present as well. Or well, not two of them. I just felt there was more people there. So I opened my eyes, and there was two female forms either side of me. Um, so the girl to my right was kind of like, I guess, sort of a white European with long brown straight hair, again wearing a very contemporary brown dress. And then the girl to my left was more Asian Indian or American Indian. Like, well, I couldn't tell because it was like a merge. And then, but she was wearing more of like an old traditional dress, which was like a sort of white sort of look to it. And so that was a bit more ethereal. And they just had their hands hovering over my body, and the hands were just kind of just going over, almost like they were healing me. So I looked down. I remember looking down to see how everything was looking, because I knew how bad my arm was looking. I'd seen the whole thing ripped open, and I looked, and it was all healed. Everything was back in place, and I just looked, and I thought, "Oh wow, that's why I'm no longer in pain, because everything's fixed. Not even a single scratch or bruise." And I was just covered in like this blue sheet. It was like a satin sort of sheet, or like or silk or what have you, and that was reflecting all this beautiful light that was coming from these grids still. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And the energy that was coming from their hands was just coming right through every single part of my body. It was beautiful, and it was an energy of love. It was like unconditional love, and it was like all the different types of love that I'd probably experienced throughout my whole life. All the different ones like you get from, say, your parents or your lover, or even your pet dog or cat. All the different forms of love were just condensed and just coming through from this light and from their hands, and it was just so powerful. So I lay there, and I remember thinking, oh, my family, because my family had arrived at the hospital at this point, and I, they were all very distressed. My mother was in tears and stuff, and
Yeah.
so I started to go, oh, I better, check on them. They're going to be pretty. They were pretty bad when I saw them last, and now they're going to be really cut up because I obviously didn't make it. I'm dead. So I figured I'd look over the edge of this big sort of rock, and look down and see if I could see them, because I had a sensation that I was above, and I looked down, and I couldn't see them at all. I couldn't see anything apart from this incredible sight. That it was like a huge waterfall of stars. Basically, it was like looking at Niagara. That kind of sight. It was epic, and these stars were just slowly cascading over the edge, like waterfalls, like water drops, but they were stars that were just like sparkling, and it was it was awesome. It was just so awe-inspiring, and the shooting stars just falling through the middle. And I looked down, and I thought, wow, this is incredible. And I could see, as I looked down, I could see another galaxy, and I could see, other parts of the universe. And the more I focused and the more I looked, it was like I was looking down further and further into further galaxies and into infinity. And I could see all these beautiful colors that I've seen. I went on to paint later. And the interesting thing is, some of those colors that I saw of a couple of years ago, the Hubble telescope took photographs of, and they're just like, and so it was a beautiful moment of affirmation. My family and my friends were getting in touch saying, "Have you seen those new?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "It's just like your painting." So that's what I was seeing. I was just seeing all these further edges of the galaxy. So there's an awful lot of color. And anyhow, as I pulled my head back over, I remember I suddenly sensed there was this energy of love that I was talking about. It's like the dial had been turned up, and it was just like
Yeah.
it was like an intense power that was coming towards me. And I looked, and there was this huge tunnel of white light, and it was just slowly closing in. And it was this pure essence of energy coming from it, and whiteness. But it was surrounded by all these flames that were very powerful. That were just slowly sort of circulating around the edge and the perimeter. And it was very strong and powerful. But I didn't have any sense of fear. I was like, okay, this is incredible, yeah. And I, again, the telepathy I talked about, I knew instantly that what I was looking at now, what I was feeling, was the source of all creation. This is God. This is not the God that we're all used to thinking of as seeing in human form, whatever our faiths may be. There's normally some kind of human sort of attachment, isn't there, to it? I thought, no, it's not. This is it. This is huge tunnel of white light, and this is the source of all creation that I'm feeling now and looking at, and in the essence of. So at that point, I remember I just laid back down, and I was like laughing. I was kind of like, whoa! It was just like I was like on this absolute joyride, because it was just all my feelings of because before I'd always felt like I said, I felt like a failure, and I felt like I'd never fitted in. So
Oh,
I've carried a lot of guilt before. So all that had gone. I didn't feel any of that anymore. I just felt, wow, that's I'm not worried about the past anymore. The past was always like creeping up over my shoulders, and I've messed up so many times, and the future was always uh, fearful to me. And I thought I didn't care about any of it. I was just in the moment, and I loved being in that moment. It was just beautiful, and it was at that point that I came crashing back down to earth. I was back into my body, and I was back in the hospital, back in all the anxiety and I remember that suddenly
chaos.
the lights were really bright, but I couldn't look at them this time. It was like fluorescent strip. It was like,
Oh wow, you've just hearing that alone is enough to make me go wow.
yeah.
No, so the it's amazing how you've been through all that, and then you still decided to write about it.
Yeah.
Also, what made, because we're both dyslexic,
Yeah.
so obviously writing is one of the things that some dyslexic people have trouble with.
Yeah.
How was it for you deciding to be able, I want to be a writer and I want to write my story and share it with the world? How was that for you?
Well, at first it was very tough because I really did want to write my story, and I thought, "There's no way I'm going to be able to do this." And then one day, a friend. There's a lot of synchronicity happened after the near-death experience, and when I came out of hospital, and one of them was catching up with an old friend I hadn't seen for some time, and she was saying, "What are you up to? What's happening?" And I talked about things, and she said, "You should write your story." And I said, "Well, yeah, I'd love to, but." And she was going, "Well, maybe I could work with you on it." And I said, "That'd be fantastic." So she offered to ghostwrite my story for me. So that's
Oh
how the
wow.
book came about. Yeah. So
Yeah.
she's incredible. She's done an
Yeah.
amazing job. So she knows me really well. So she was able to get inside my head, and she interviewed me for hours, and we went through everything together, to make sure that everything was right, and she wanted to do that as well. I'd say, "Oh, no, it wasn't like that," or "I didn't feel that," or what have you. So she wanted to, and she actually said she felt like she got inside my head, but she also felt like that it wasn't all her that had written that book. She felt like she was, because I've talked about channeling, because I channel ideas through when I'm painting and writing music, and I'm feeling that it's coming from another source. And I've talked all about that with her, and she since said, "Do you know what? I think that I was channeling when I was writing." I said, "I think you were, because it's unbelievable. It's almost like, I can't believe there's so many different parts of me that you don't actually know, but you managed to be able to still get to and bring out in that book." And I think he's done an amazing job. So it's yeah. So that's how that came about. But again, an awful lot of self belief made it happen. I never had any self belief whatsoever before. Yeah. And what the near death experience taught me was all that unconditional love that I experienced on the other side taught me to come back and love myself. And once I started loving myself, because I didn't want to let go of that feeling, I'd still got an awful lot of that energy when I first came back, and stayed with me for weeks and months, and and as continued on. But right at the very beginning, when I was recovering in hospital, I felt like I got an umbilical cord still attached to that other place.
Yep.
And people noticed it. My friends and family would come into the hospital, and they all comment. They're going, "Wow, look at you! You're just glowing." And I couldn't even move at that point. I was just laid in this bed with all these tubes coming out of me and stuff. And they're going, "Yeah, but you just look amazing." And I remember my mother saying that. Yeah. So an awful lot of I've learned to sort of keep that love with me and make sure that I continue to have that self belief to make things happen.
See?
Yeah, so that's how it came about.
What advice would you give to people about, even though you go through something in life, that you must never give up on your dreams? Because, like I said before, you've been through so much, but regardless of this near death experience, you still persisted in believing in your dreams and aspirations of what you wanted to be and what you want to do. What advice would you give to people who are in a similar situation that you were in the beginning, to wanting to be where you are now? Because it seems to me, and I can feel that you feel like you're in a place of peace and compassion.
Yeah, yeah, I am. You're absolutely right. And I think what I would advise is before I was aspiring to people. I remember I knew a lot of people who worked in the music industry and stuff like that, and they were making a lot of money, and I wanted to be part of that. And I was constantly trying to knock on that door saying, "Let me in," So I was aspiring to so many things. Nothing wrong with aspiring to things, but what I would say is that stop and breathe and allow whatever you're doing in your life to be totally you. Make sure that it's organically you. And
Hmm.
and if that's the case, then things will start to unfold. Like for example, with me now, I'm a painter, I'm an artist, and I write classical music. That never would have come into my mindset before, because I would have thought, no, 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 I don't want to do that. I just want to, you know, I want to make videos of rock bands and stuff like that or whatever, and it just wasn't for me. That just wasn't my path, and that wasn't meant to be. So if you just stop and give it some time, give it space, don't be impatient, and you'll kind of hear a voice that will lead you to do whatever's meant for you to be. Well, it doesn't matter what it is. It's whether you hear people suddenly turn around and say, "Do you know what? I've suddenly decided I'm gonna join the Air Force or whatever," and they've
Yeah.
made that overnight decision, and that's a gut instinct has told them, a voice has told them that's meant for them, and when they do go off and join the Air Force or whatever that is, well, they come back and they're a changed person. It's like, wow, you found your pathway. Do you know what I mean? And so just yeah, don't rush it, but don't just don't be impatient. But the most important thing is forget about the past. Forget about past mistakes. If you're like me, like a lot of people are, and when I was in that situation, um, the past doesn't exist, and it's a huge weight to carry around with you that you don't need around your shoulders. And so, forget the past and give yourself a clean canvas, a clean sheet, and say, right, I'm starting from this clean sheet now, and this
Yep.
is the beginning.
Okay. I love that. Talk to me about your composing and how that has influenced your life now. How has that changed you as a person, and how has it influenced your life and your work?
Um, it's changed a lot because I didn't know that was going to come. I didn't know that was going to happen. It just came to me uh, that these musical notes came through, and I just was thought, oh, that sounds lovely. And I just remember I'd got an old synthesizer that was in the loft or what have you, and I got that down and dusted it off, and all I got was a cassette recorder at that point. And those three notes and that little chord progression went onto that tape recorder, and I thought that sounds great, and I just developed it from that point, and I got it to a point where I was lucky enough to again synchronicity made me become friends with a cello player. I talked to her,
Yes.
and then she said, "Oh, maybe our orchestra will perform it," and I thought, "Great," and they said they would, and I'll never forget going to that first rehearsal. Okay, I walked in there and I was apprehensive because it's quite a daunting sort of arena. In all fairness, they're lovely people, but for me, coming from a working class background, it's a very middle class, highly educated arena, and it's like, oh, I walked in and the conductor said, "Oh, the composer's arrived." And I was thinking, "What? I'm not the composer. It's me, David." And he said, "David, would you like to say a few words about your piece?" And I said, "No, thanks," but he said, "Come on, so to speak." So I did. And once I started talking about, because it was based on my near death experience, it's called The Divine Light. Um, the orchestra were asking me questions. They were really keen to know all about the story. And I'll never forget the moment where the conductor's band came down. And I'm like, here we go. And those chords that I talked about that I wrote on that little cheap Spanish synthesizer suddenly came in, played by an orchestra, and wow, the sound! It's like three dimensional. It's like I'm feeling it now that I've gone back in that moment, and it's just it's incredible, and it's a beautiful spiritual moment, and it inspired me just to want to keep doing that, and I basically I from that I got commissioned by other people to write more music, and so that gave me confidence to keep going, and I just kind of thought, yeah, okay. I've got no education in this at all. I'm not classically trained, but that first piece worked, and the concert sold out. There was a standing ovation at the end. There must have been something going right. So I don't even question it. I don't even try and I don't intellectualize it or pull it apart. I just
Yeah.
allow spirit, if you like, to help guide me each time. Whenever I'm writing, I'm being given information to help me put all those ideas together.
I love that. That's a really beautiful feeling, also, as well, for you to be able to now have all these talents that maybe you thought you would never have,
Yeah.
and be able to share them with the world. It's a really beautiful thing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it is. It's for me, it's fantastic because going back to that sound of three dimension, I feel like my life is more three dimensional now as well. So
See?
and creativity is where was meant for me. It's
Yeah.
where I'm meant to be. And I'm not saying that it takes a dramatic train accident and a near-death experience to get anybody to that point. I think we can all do it. But it's just a question of being in the moment and stopping and allowing that, as I talked about earlier, that organic sort of feeling to come through, and then
Definitely.
you'll know what to do. You know what you should be doing with your life.
What would you like your legacy to be when you do leave this world and go back to the spiritual realm?
um, ah, I guess I'd love for my music and my art to live on, basically, because that means that the energy that I know that people get from my music and my art will continue, even though I'm no longer here. And that's basically what I would love my legacy to be. Yeah, for that. Not because I want my name up in lights, not because I want people to say, "Oh, what a great composer he was." It would just be lovely to know that it was it was continuing on for people to still to resonate with it in the same way as said you did with the book.
Yeah. Most definitely. David, I have one more question for you, and that is, how can we find you on all your social media? So if anybody else would like to contact you or find your book, how can they find it?
Yeah, sure. Well, the best thing to do is to go to my website, which is called shineonthestory.com. And if you go there, that's like the main hub. You can listen to my first symphony that I taught. You can stream that for free, all three movements on there. And you can see quite a few of my paintings are up on the website. Links to, as you said, the video diaries, and which I'm going to be doing a
Yes.
lot more of those because I didn't realise how much people like them. So that's going to be more of a feature now,
Yeah.
and then also news reviews and interviews with people like yourself. That you also be going
Yeah.
up there and stuff. So and and what have you, but also links if you want to go to my other pages because I've got like a YouTube channel and I've got an Instagram page and Facebook page. You can try and find me there, or you can find the links on my website. So that's shineonthestory.com. If you want to get the book's out now, so it's on through O Books, and you can get it through Amazon wherever you are in the world. Basically, just go in and put in Shine On and my name, David Ditchfield, and it will come up, and you just be able to order it. So yeah, it's getting some lovely reviews actually, which is great. On Amazon, people it's just wonderful. It's just like from all these different far corners of the world. And it's just like even from
See?
a guy from Tokyo got in touch with me the other day, and he's doing research into religion. He does at Tokyo University into how they deal with looking at faith and in I'm trying to think what part of the world it was now, but anyway, but in some Eastern Asia, I think it was. Yeah, Eastern Asia. So yeah, and he said he read my story, read all about it, and so he was keen to sort of talk a bit more about me and bring that into his studies, which is great, you know. So, sorry, I'm just going.
No, I love it.
I'm living.
I love it. I love anything with optimism or something that helps somebody to achieve goodness in a positive way.
Yeah,
is never a bad thing to talk about.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Definitely, David, I want to thank you so much once again for coming on the Ask People podcast. You've been such a great guest. I'm humbled to have you and appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been brilliant.
No, perfect. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the Ask People podcast. And please remember, you can subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also donate to the Ask People podcast by simply going to the Savia Rocks website or just typing in paypal.me/Ask People podcast. Thank you for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another.
That was great. Thank you so much. Lovely questions. Really great. Yeah. Brilliant. Great. Well, you really are, honestly, you're lovely to talk to. You're very, really great interviewer.